wanted to talk about a big topic for all of us for this month of May, and you'll hear this much more as we go on throughout the month, but it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we wanted to bring in a good friend of ours here at WCNC Charlotte. We have Fonda Bryant, who is a mental health advocate and a suicide prevention advocate, and you speak out so much about the importance of mental health, and not just that, you actually host these sessions where you teach people how to address potential, suicide risks with the people in their lives, which is incredible to me to think. And I know that this comes from a place deep in your heart about your personal experiences, right?
Yeah, it does. If you would have told me 30 years ago that I would be sharing my story of being to the point where I just felt like I was in so much pain from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. I was struggling really bad with an undiagnosed, untreated mental health condition, and on February 14th, I almost took my own life. And if it hadn't have been for my Aunt Spanky, her real name is Kelly, who, when I called her and told her you could have my shoes, she could have said, well, you know what, my nickname is Tweety. But, I go by, my real name is Fonda, and she could have said, well, she's having a bad day, I'll just call her back tomorrow. Well, if she would have waited, I wouldn't be here, and neither would a lot of other people. She went into action. She called me back, and she asked me straight out, are you going to kill yourself? And I said, yes. And she went into action like Superman does, pulled back that S, and went into action like a superhero. Had me involuntarily committed, and as bad as that day was, having me involuntarily committed, handcuffed, and taken to a mental health facility, because that was 1995, long before CIT, the Crisis Intervention Team. And to be handcuffed in front of my son, my neighbors who didn't know what was going on, and then being put in a police car, and at the time 485 wasn't there, so that was a long ride from Sharon Amity to Pineville, and people looking at me like I'm a criminal, and they had no idea that I had been planning my suicide. And if my aunt hadn't gotten to me, I would not be here. So it's very personal for me. And then when you really think about it, in 1995, my aunt did not even really know the warning signs. She had no formal training. But when I called her and told her, you can have my shoes, she knew something was wrong. And she didn't care if I got mad. She didn't care if my mom got mad at her. She didn't care if my grandmother got mad at her. She saved my life. She didn't care about that. And that's what I tell people when I'm training them. You can't worry about us getting mad at you. Yeah, we might get mad at you, might not ever speak to you again, but we're alive. Or you can do nothing. And as I call it, the why pain. Why didn't I recognize the signs? Why didn't I reach out to them? Why didn't they reach out to me? Why? And that why pain can eat you up. So that's what my mission is, and my purpose, to stop the why pain and the tragedy of suicide. Because number one, it is the most preventable death of all deaths, and anyone can save a life. You do not have to be a professional, and that's a wonderful thing. You can, if you pick up on the signs, I can guarantee you can end up saving somebody's life.
Yeah, and I mean, we hear you tell this story, and we're so grateful that you feel comfortable sharing this story, your personal story, with all of us, just because it's something that folks need to hear, because I think it resonates with maybe a lot more people than we like to think. And we do want to remind folks, because this could be a triggering type of topic, we're going to put the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline on the screen for folks, 988. That's the hotline that we talked about, that's been established for folks to get quick care. We just wanted to make sure that that's on the screen, and just a reminder, of course, this could be a difficult topic for us to broach, but we're going to broach it nonetheless because it is important. One of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about and have you in, the reason is, this QPR training, because you kind of touched on this, the fact that I think all of us generally and nebulously know, right, we're supposed to take care of our mental health, and we're supposed to try to be there for other people if we think that there are some signs, but nobody knows how to actually do that. What is the right thing to say? How do I dive deeper? We're afraid that we're going to offend someone. We're afraid that we're going to get them mad at us for asking. So can you explain this QPR process? What does it stand for? Okay. And how does that work?
Well, QPR stands for Question, Persuade, Refer Suicide Prevention Training, and it's all around helping someone who is in crisis or suicidal. And the thing is, QPR, if you listen, the acronyms are QPR. CPR and QPR are basically the same thing. You're helping someone in a medical emergency. So let's say, I always ask people when I do QPR training, how many of y'all have been CPR trained? And a lot of people raise their hand and they'll tell me yes. I said, okay, so let's say you're somewhere and somebody has a heart attack or stroke and you jump in and administer CPR. And they might die on the way to the hospital, or they might die, they might die on the way to the hospital, or they might die later on down the road. Is that your fault? No, because you did everything on the front end to help them. Same thing with QPR. If you help us, whether we're in crisis or suicidal, and we end up dying by suicide, that's not your fault, because we have to put in the work and we have to want to live. Mental health is not a quick fix. And this is how I always tell people, people say all the time, well, I get depressed, but I'm not depressed like that. Or I have anxiety, but I'm not dealing with anxiety like this. So this is a litmus test for mental health. Mm-hmm. We all have days we get depressed. We all have days we feel anxiety. We're dealing with critical times hard to deal with. But if it lasts for more than 2 weeks like it did for me, mm-hmm. and it started interfering with my everyday life, my job, my no longer finding a joy in things that I did, thinking about death, things like that, you need to go see somebody ASAP, mm-hmm. because it will get worse. And you were mentioning me sharing my story. You know what? It really, when I got taken to that hospital in handcuffs, and I was there for a week, I never will forget when the psychiatrist told me, he said, Fonda, you have clinical depression, a disease that's never going to go away. And you could have knocked me over with a feather, because I'm like, oh my God, this almost killed me. How am I going to live with it? But I realized something. The brain is a computer of our bodies. Everybody has been at work before when the computers go down. Mm-hmm. It's nothing we can do. We'll usually goof off, go home, whatever the case may be. Same thing. Our brain is a computer of our body. If it goes down, it will make you do things and say things that you never thought you would do. But it's also an organ, and it's the most powerful organ, and it's no different than heart, liver, kidneys. And you can live with a mental health condition, but as I said before, it's not a quick fix, and you have to put in the work every single day like I do. Because I'm a 30-year veteran with this, mm-hmm. but if I say, okay, well, you know what, this week I worked out hard, I went to the gym, I did everything I was supposed to do, and the next couple of weeks, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to really put in the work, it could cost me my life. Mm-hmm. It could cost me my life. So if I can share my story, and it will help someone else, this QPR training, to train someone who can turn around and help themselves, even themselves, then to me that's worth every 2-hour training or, getting out here and sharing my story.
Well, and right now we're actually looking at some of the images you sent us of some of your training courses, and we're seeing in these photos, we've got students and we've got police officers, and I mean, you take this QPR training on the road to pretty much everywhere that will have you talk about it, because, there are no boundaries of where mental health, could be an issue, right? I mean, it could happen anywhere where you have to talk about these things.
Exactly, and it can happen to anyone. I always tell people in QPR training, we have a lot of discrimination in this country. But one thing that does not discriminate is mental health. It treats us all the same. It doesn't care where you went to school, Gaston College, Duke, Wake Forest. It doesn't care what race you are, what gender you are, how much money is in your bank account, male, female. It treats us all the same. And that's what I try to get people to see. And also, it's a hidden condition, because you can look like $1 million. Let's talk about Chesley Chris for a minute. Yeah. Chesley, when she died by suicide, people were coming out of the woodwork, calling me, texting me, saying, oh my God, Fonda, I just couldn't believe she took her own life. She was beautiful, she was smart, she was, college educated, she had money. I said, guys, mental health doesn't care a thing about that. She had the same disease that I had. Depression is the #1 debilitating disease in the world, and it's also the #1 disease that can cause us to go down that path. When I do QPR training, I always bring up when I was a little girl, my grandmother used to make homemade biscuits for us, and we would have molasses. Molasses are thicker than honey, they're thicker than syrup, and we would pour it in the plate, then we put some butter in it, stir it up, and then those great biscuits my grandmother used to make, you break it, and then you slide it across the molasses. Well, those molasses were so thick, it would break the biscuit, and then you would have to take effort to use a spoon and put the molasses on the spoon, and then eat it, put it on the biscuit and eat it. And that's what I felt like when I was dealing with the undiagnosed, untreated mental health condition known as depression. It felt like everything I did took a lot of effort, from talking to walking to combing my hair, to brushing my teeth. You know, I tell people I have an electric toothbrush, so how much energy should it take? Some days, this person who works out 3 to 4 times a week has a hard time just brushing her teeth, combing her hair. But people tell me, what are you talking about? You work out, you look great. See, that's what I'm saying about a mental health condition. It hides. You know, we can look like $1 million on the outside, like I said, but on the inside, we're really struggling just to get through the day.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about sometimes, like I hear the terms like high performing XYZ, whatever the mental illness is, high performing depression, where someone is just really good at putting the mask on, and so you just never know. At what point do you think that maybe folks need to kick into the questioning part? What sort of signs?
Well, some of the signs for me that still apply to people today, well, one of the first signs with me, I was extremely tired, not regular tired, debilitating tired, like I said. The other thing, my appearance changed. I take great pride in my appearance. When I was working at the hospital as a pharmacist tech, I didn't wear any makeup. I did good to take a shower because all my energy went towards getting Wesley to school. My son was 12, and putting energy in him. My work ethic changed. I was a pharmacist tech. I work with everything from aspirin to Oxycontin to morphine to Demerol. So we had to be on point. I could not concentrate. I could not pay attention to detail. Something else. You know, we heard this word a lot during COVID, isolation, isolation. I didn't want to be around other people. I didn't want to talk to you. I just wanted to be alone. And when I'm doing QPR training, the first homework assignment I give everybody, I said, I want y'all to think about who you haven't talked to in a while, who you haven't checked on. And I want you, after training, to check on them, because the best way to save someone's life is not even as good a trainer as I am. The best way to save someone's life is simply caring, checking on people. And if you text someone and you say, hey, how are you doing? And they text you back, I'm straight, I'm okay, I'm all right. Guys, pick up the phone and call them. Ask the question, you sure you're all right? You sure you're okay? And guys, sometimes we don't need you to fix stuff. Sometimes we just need a good listening ear. Also, another sign, I had quit eating. I would go 3 or 4 days without eating, and then when I did eat, my stomach was cramping so bad because it had shrank. But on the flip side, someone might eat a lot to find comfort in food. Self-medicating. You are 6 times more likely to go down that path of suicide if you're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. So someone like myself, I never drank a day of my life, but that might be something that I do to get that courage up. Also, like I said, changing personality, not bathing maybe. So it's some of those signs that can really be warning signs. And I tell everybody, the more clues and signs observed, the greater the risk. Also, someone tying up loose ends. Like I said, giving away prized possessions. I called my Aunt Spanky, and I told her you could have my shoes. It doesn't have to be anything of monetary value. You know that person values that. And if they come and say, here, I want you to have it, you don't say, well, thank you, that's so sweet. You say, hey, are you all right? Are you okay? Would you like to talk? And something else, if you're going to talk to someone about their mental health or suicide, if they came to you, you do it alone in a private setting. You don't talk to them in front of other people. And for God's sake, please, if somebody comes and opens up and shares with you, don't go and run and tell other people. Don't do that. But this is something else too. You don't have to start down the straight path of, hey, are you suicidal? Do you have a plan? This is something I share all the time, and it's through American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It's called Seize the Awkward. This is not a warm and fuzzy subject, but we have to have these uncomfortable conversations to become comfortable to invoke change, because suicide is through the roof. And before we end this conversation, I want to give out some of the stats of how bad suicide is, because most people think it's isolated incidents because the media doesn't report it. So I really want people to know we really are in a crisis, but this is a great way. And when anybody takes my QPR training, I send them this link. So this is a way you can start a conversation. 5 ways to start a conversation. Talking to a friend about their mental health can be awkward, but it can really help. Just starting a conversation, even if it feels awkward, can make a real difference in someone's life. 5 ways to start a conversation. Hey, we haven't talked in a while. How are you? 2, are you okay? You don't seem like yourself lately. 3, hey, you seem frustrated today. I'm here for you. 4, seems like something's up. Do you want to talk about what's going on? 5, I'm worried about you and would like to know what's up so I can help. See, you don't have to start off, are you suicidal? Do you have a plan? It can be something very simple as what I just got finished saying. And again, you do it alone in a private setting, and then you don't go run back and tell other people, because what's going to happen if you do, we're going to shut down and we're not going to say anything else to you.
Well, and I can't, tell you how good it feels just in general, regardless of what your mental state is, to have a friend check in and just say, how are you feeling? Or, I noticed I haven't heard from you in a bit. Just wanted to make sure everything's okay, because it makes folks feel like they're not alone.
Yes, and the thing is, sometimes we're not ready to talk about what's going on with us because we're trying to figure things out. Just plant the seed. Hey, how are you doing? And if we don't really want to talk, say, you know what? When you're ready to talk, I'm here for you. You'd be surprised at planting that seed, what it does to us and how it can help. And checking on people, like I said before, we have a very high rate of suicide among the elderly. And I think in Mecklenburg County, I was told that by CMPD. And I really believe a lot of that is because they feel like a burden because people aren't checking on them to see if they're okay. So I tell everybody, check on people, make sure that they're doing okay, because actually several years ago, I saved the life of a total stranger all the way in Provo, Utah. I did not know him. The only reason how I just have to start from it, because I talk about this in training. Simply Caring saved his life. He played football for BYU, Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. People are like, how did you follow the BYU football team? My extended son had been a coach there, so I followed the team. Well, he left, and I kept following the team. So one day, this was during COVID and during when George Floyd was murdered. There was a lot of stuff going on, and of course, we were confined at home. So I watched this video of BYU football players. Some of them were black, some of them were Polynesian, Samoan, and white. And they got together and they did a video called Be the Change. And Chaz Ayu was the first one up. And this was such a miracle. It made national news. So Chaz was the first one up. He's biracial. Mother had mental health issues and substance abuse. Dad, black, nowhere to be found. So he was adopted by the Ayus. Joanne, Polynesian, his adopted father, Jason, coach at BYU, Samoan. They're part of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint. So I watched the video, and Chaz was the first one up. Now, this was on Twitter, and he said, be the change. And see, one thing about QPR training, it gives you spider sense. You're able to pick up on stuff. And so he said, be the change. And I said, something is wrong. So then I started reading some of the comments from fans, and they were like, shut up, play football, Black Lives Matter is destroying the family. And then Chaz posted a tweet. He didn't say I'm suicidal, he didn't say I'm in crisis, but I knew something was wrong. He said, funny how y'all will cheer for us when we're on the field, but we need you to understand our pain, not fight it. When he said that, they lit him up even more. I said, I got to check on this young man, because I think, it's no telling what he's thinking. So I reached out to him in his DM, and I said, hey, young man, are you all right? Are you okay? So hours passed. He came back. He said, yes, ma'am, thank you, I'm okay. In QPR training, it says, if you feel like someone is suicidal, you don't wait to ask the question. I ask him straight out, are you suicidal? Do you have a plan? So he disappeared. You know, it might have scared him or whatever the case may be. So he disappeared. The next part of QPR training says, if the person is reluctant, you be persistent. So for 2 weeks, I was, let me help you get help. I'm here for you. I've been through the same thing. You can get better. You know, I just was throwing everything but the kitchen sink. And so if they're reluctant, you just don't say, well, you know, I did ask them and they just disappeared, so I guess they're okay. You be persistent, but you also start gathering information. You can ask them, do you have insurance? You can ask them, do you have an EAP, an Employee Assistance Program, which is a wonderful tool that people need to use. You can start gathering. You can type in mental health resources in their area. I didn't live in Provo, Utah, but I typed it in, mental health resources. So finally, after 2 weeks of me being persistent, he came back and he said, let me ask you something. Did my parents put you up to this? I said, no, I don't know your parents. And at the time, I didn't. He said, did the coach put you up to it? Talking about my extended son, Coach Stewart. I said, no, I knew you were in trouble and I wanted to help. He said, well, I could use your help. I deal with depression and anxiety. He and I started talking offline, and he told me 2 weeks before I reached out to him, he was planning his suicide. So I look at that as divine intervention, but I also look at my QPR training that I knew something was wrong. And a couple of years ago, when I walked 28 miles to bring awareness to my anniversary and to suicide prevention, he graduated from BYU, and he just celebrated his 26th birthday on December 14th of last year. Simply Caring and QPR training saved his life. That's why I am such an advocate for training, because education is really the key to saving someone's life.
Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible story. You talked about how you're bringing these trainings on the road to various places. Folks watching this, they want to take a training. I know that you do have a class coming up later this month. It's on the 24th. It's kind of around the midday hours. So we'll just throw that out there. And we actually have a full screen that we can share for folks who want to take a look, which you sent to us just a little bit earlier today. But how can folks have you to, let's say, I don't know, their business or to whatever it is that they do, their classroom, to have you talk about this?
They can always reach out to me on my social media, Fonda Bryant on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm Proud Mom 72. And they can also email me. My email is on the flyer, but they can always email me at fonda_40@yahoo.com. You know, when I first took QPR as a student, I loved the training, but I knew it could be improved upon. And so I became a certified trainer thanks to a scholarship from Mental Health America. And I became a trainer in March of 2018. And I had trained a little bit, but something good can always come out of something bad or tragic. And when COVID happened, I decided I was going to start training people online. And it's amazing, from March 19th, from March of 2020, when COVID hit, to December 19th of 2020, I trained over 1,000 people from 25 states and 5 countries, and that included youth. Believe it or not, we have a QPR training for youth, and the only difference between the youth training and the adult training, we urge youth to go tell an adult. And I have had students that did that because they felt comfortable. You know, you mentioned about saying something wrong or not saying something right. When you take QPR training, you learn what to say and what not to say. For instance, there's one thing in that training that says, offer hope in any form. Let that person know you care about them. Let them know other people care about them. Let them know the good things that they have to look forward to, because see, when we're struggling, you can't always see that. So you let them know, hey, these are the great things you got to look forward to, but you don't do this. You don't sit up and say, well, you know, Fonda, if you kill yourself, you're going to hurt a lot of people. Do you know how many people you're going to hurt? That's being very negative. That's laying guilt on us, and we already know that. So QPR training is all about offering hope and uplifting that person so they can get help and they can get better. Because really, Vanessa, when I think about February 14th, 1995. And then the last serious time I thought about just the pain was too much was in April of 2014. And I look at that and say, if I would have died by suicide, I would have missed out on so many things in life. Because in that moment, it's like holding up bottled water. Depression and anxiety are the beat up mental health disorders, and they distort all the good things you have going on in your life. And it's like raising up water and me trying to read a sign through bottled water. It's distorted, and that's what it does. So it distorted the fact that I had a wonderful son. It distorted the fact that I wanted to see my son grow up, or this pain that I was dealing with was only a short-term thing, and if I got the help I needed, I could live. So I just want people to know that if you're struggling, you really aren't alone. There is help out here, because I've been low more than once with that thought of nobody's gonna care, my son would be better off, but I got the help and I put in the work daily. So I urge everyone to please, please consider taking QPR suicide prevention training, because it can save, it will save a life. And you can reach out to me. I have one free training a month. If you want me to come in and train your businesses or your schools, suicide is everybody's business, and anyone can prevent the tragedy and pain of suicide. I feel like I was spared to do exactly what I'm doing, and I'm very proud to be here. And I'm going to keep doing this until we finally put a dent into suicide.
Thank you so much for what you do, Fonda. We're
Thank
so
you.
grateful for the work that you
Thank
do
you.
and for you taking the time to come in. And we know this because you're coming in multiple times, and this is going to be an ongoing discussion. Hopefully not just this month, because we like to talk about this a lot. Just we want to make sure that folks know there are resources out there, including as we put up the information on the screen. You, Fonda NC_40 at yahoo.com,
Yes.
one way to reach you. And also we'll remind folks once again, 988 is the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, 988. All right. Fonda, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad we're going to keep having these conversations, but action has to action has to come from behind our words, else nothing will change. So thank y'all guys for having me. Appreciate you.
Well,